Hey everybody, I did not record much the last 2 days, but there's basically 2 things I've been doing. 1, I've been machining new scales in the mill. 2, I've been powder coating those scales and the carabiners that we already had. If the weather cooperates, we should be able to finish up product photography today or tomorrow. The Kickstarter is still under review, but we should get an answer on that today. But while the powder coating oven is heating up, I'm going to move into my lean improvements. Scott, what are you going to do for your lean improvement?
I realized very quickly that I needed a better computer to edit video, and so I bought all the parts and now I'm going to put it together.
Building a computer may seem like kind of a big improvement and a big expense, but you have to remember that's like what he does. Like that's the equivalent of the mill for me. Like the mill is the tool that I use all the time, and so all of my improvements and tooling and the money spent revolves around the mill. Well, his tool is the computer. This is today's little shop improvement. Basically, I made the finishing area into a U-shaped cell. Before, I had the tumblers over here, and if I needed to fill them up or empty them out, I would pick it up, turn all the way around, put it in the sink, do things here. When I was done, I would pick it up, turn all the way back around, put it down here. Then I'd have to take my parts, turn back around, take my parts from the sink, walk over here, put them in the ultrasonic cleaner, clean them off, walk back over here, rinse them off, walk back over here to where I had the DI water, rinse them off again, and then do whatever I needed to do after that. So there's just a lot of wasted motion in that cell. Now you can do everything from standing in one place. I think the last big step is to have another tub here of just regular tap water for rinsing. That way I don't have to keep going back to the sink, and it's a little bit faster than trying to use the sink to hose them off. But I don't have that tub yet, so it's good enough for now. I also put down some brown paper because this table is incredibly difficult to clean off, as this piece of plywood just came from some scrap material I had laying around. It is just painted and is very rough, and I should just replace this whole top to make it easier to clean. But in the meantime, if I make a mess, I can just swap out that brown paper. So while I'm powder coating, scales are running on the mill. Basically exactly the same thing I was doing before, except now I'm using the powder coating tape, and I have to say it works so much better. The tape is probably twice as expensive as painter's tape, but like that's it, and it is far more reliable. So definitely a win in my book. I'll have a link to that tape down in the description. This was bound to happen eventually. I left that valve open because I was trying to get some of the plant water out of there so I could make more RO water. And I left it open. And now I have to mop the floor again. So I had a thought as to the direction of designing everything, products and goals and how we design things. And how we design things. What?
I also had a thought about this.
I think we need to double down on color.
Okay.
It's not, like there's not a lot of companies doing a lot of color right now, particularly in like the EDC type of thing. And it's also the kind of thing, like it's kind of a pain, like it's hard. It's not easy to do lots of colors. And most manufacturing companies don't have graphic designers working for them, or, as a co-founder.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a thing that we can do that other companies can't or aren't willing to.
My thought was, this is not revolutionary, but my thought was like medium term that we focus on the keychains and desk toys, because I think they mesh in a kind of weird, or overlap in kind of a weird way, at least of the people that buy those things.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, desk toys is maybe not as broad as I mean, desk accessories, but also toys.
Define accessories / toys.
Like, are you familiar with Ugmonk?
No.
They're like this. It's basically one guy, as far as I know, but he has a lot of manufacturing partners that he's very, very picky about. And he does like complete desk setups, or at least that's his overall goal. So, and he's been doing really well for himself. But he does like the minimalist like Apple aesthetic like really well for desks, and I think that we could do something similar to that, but design the everything instead of that colorful. I suppose, like we were just saying, because it's I like it a lot. It's like metals and woods and white and black. You'd probably like it, but it wouldn't be design the everything if we did it that way. So like it'd be like monitor stands and like places to put your mouse and places to put your phone, and I mean, but we can also still do toys like puzzles and tops and things like we did before.
So it's funny you say that, because I have been wanting to do a monitor stand and just haven't really found an excuse. Like, because I spent 4 years at my last job designing monitor stands and related similar entities. So like I know how to make a good functioning monitor stand that'll stand up over time. The ones we made were not industrial design masterpieces. They were functional, but like they weren't pretty. And so I have been wanting to make pretty monitor stands. The question is, do we shift our focus, or is that shifting our focus, or do we wait? Do we do that as a different brand?
I guess I would say it's not splitting our focus, at least not in a negative way. It might be kind of a sub-brand, like Better Keychains, but I think that it meshes well enough that it's not like a distraction.
You say that, but like the stuff for Better Desks is probably going to be a completely different set of tools. And like we're not going to be making things out of titanium, like machines.
Oh.
But we can also slowly work there, and we can start with things that are within our core.
Yeah, I don't want to overreach, but I think that knowing that's a place we want to go is good.
I am not opposed. BetterDesks.com is taken.
Is it like $10,000?
It's a make an offer.
Yeah, that's worse.
I'm not opposed, though. I think right now we need to focus on keychains and keychain related things.
So I'm in the middle of building the computer, and I got to the part where you attach the motherboard to the case and looked around for literally like 20 minutes, could not find the teeny tiny screws that you do that with, and was like, well, I guess I'm going to Menards, and stood around at Menards staring at screws for literally 30 minutes because they didn't have screws that were short enough. And came back, ate lunch, sat down, and found my screws attached to the PC case in a place that I just had not looked at yet. So that was a waste of 2 hours or whatever, but at least I know now. We're ready? Sorry.
We were able to get a good number of carabiners and scales powder coated, and so now we are at our favorite park for product photography, and it's wet. This weather is actually super good for product photography because the light is very even and like ambient, so there's none of those hot spots that we were getting before when we were in direct sunlight. We don't need to worry about like reflecting light around with a cardboard or anything like that. It is wet, however. It's not too wet.
Yes, it is.
It's not too wet.
It will make the camera wet.
The camera can get a little bit wet. It's fine. I also have the trash bag for this very reason. You can still put one on if you want. I brought two.
It mostly bothers me on my head, and I'm not putting a trash bag over my head.
Life advice with Scott. So I think our first goal should be to get a bunch of pictures that show the colors of the carabiners. So maybe set up like one consistent spot and swap out carabiners or put them all together. We don't want the road in the background. Yes, they are. Okay, let's go do those.
Okay. But we can still do the swapping thing.
Now, I did, like when I was piecing them together, I kind of just chose colors that looked good together as best I could, but like we can swap them around to do different combinations. I also tried to avoid repeating combinations. Like I didn't want to do like purple and green and purple, or blue and yellow and blue.
How far is it?
Should we take a walk back to the woods where there's some cover?
How far is it?
That far?
Yeah.
It's like a 2-minute walk.
Sure.
I found a nice rock. This is a nice rock. Should we bring it with us? Should we go to the moss rock or should we go to the ancient village?
Whichever's farther for now. We can come back to the rock.
Okay. Weather is not cooperating. Scott didn't have a raincoat, so we brought trash bags.
It started to rain more.
It was raining more.
Now we're under a tree.
Now we're under a tree. It's a pretty tree. As fun as this excursion was, we don't have to do this today.
I mean, the rain's supposed to pass.
The rain on the carabiners might be cool and authentic. Like, think about how hip we'll be. I thought you'd respond to being hip in the rain.
Oh,
but
I didn't know it was still going. Hip in the rain?
Never mind. What about right here for our first round of product photos? This is pretty ground. Just hide the coffee cup. I kind of accidentally scattered the carabiners everywhere in the bag. What colors will look good against the dark brown background?
Bright on dark, dark on bright.
Yes.
The background is in focus.
You should make the carabiner in focus. Let's see what your settings are. Turn your, oh gosh, we don't have a whole bunch of light. Turn up the ISO a little bit. Okay, everything we're doing today is gonna have a low depth of field unless we can get more light, which we might be able to in Ancient Village.
Can we keep it medium depth of field?
You can try. We can try making our ISO even higher. Like the ISO will go higher. We just risk noise. That's not too bad, I suppose.
The yellows are really blown out.
Yeah, it's probably trying to adjust for the dark background. The other option is maybe we do use some of the darker colors here because they aren't going to contrast as much with the ground, which may not be good as good for product photography, but it might be good for photography. Probably
just gonna try them all.
I'm gonna go do some site exploration. It's definitely much brighter out here. We refer to this section as the Ancient Village, and I saw something that I think will work well on the photos. There's some good moss here. That's some good texture. So there's some good green and yellow daffodils back there. There's also plenty of textury, like mossy bark and barky moss and muddy bark and barky mud.
Yeah, we can move over there.
Okay. It is very dark under here compared to out there. That is by far my favorite one. Back under the tree. It is a good tree. It started raining on us again. There were better days we could have done this.
Back to the original location.
Yes, a tree. But there is convenient bag branch. Remember, we can't always swap out scales. I almost fell. Remember, we can't always swap out scales.
I know.
We could do green and yellow or something. Which daffodils do you want?
I can't think because I'm being rained on. How were you picturing the pictures with the daffodils?
Daffodils was as far as I got. We don't have to daffodil. Or do we just go home and call this a day? Do we just call it too wet to continue?
I don't know. I can't think because I'm being rained on.
I feel like if you can't, let's just go try this again tomorrow.
Okay.
We tried. Weather did not cooperate. So we got really wet. I thought the rain had stopped, and then I just boldly walked out from under the pine tree without asking Scott. And then we got just far enough away that it was too far to go back.
Yep.
And then it got really wet. And then I remembered that my rain jacket isn't really a rain jacket. It's just a windbreaker. Hey, our Kickstarter's approved. Hey, Scott, guess what?
The Kickstarter's approved.
And this is the first you've heard of it, I'm sure.
Yes. I didn't hear about it 60 seconds ago.
This is my wife. That is actually super, super, super good news because now we can launch the pre-launch page so people can start signing up for launch notifications, which is where traditionally a lot of our sales come from. With the Not for Climbing Kickstarter, it took like 4 or 5 rounds of revision for just stupid little things. We were on the edge of them just flat out rejecting us completely, but they did be okay with it.
I remembered I have a hood.
We'll edit all the yelling out. This is a nice tree. We like this tree. This is our tree buddy. I will call him Steve. And it's wet. 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 Not too wet. 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 Really wet.